record to the cloud. It's recording. So it is 1:03. I think we'll get started. Hopefully a couple more people will join us if they are able. But I'd like to introduce everybody today to Shoghag Panjarian. She is a research scientist at the Coriell Institute for Medical Research in Camden, New Jersey. And just to give you a little bit of background, her educational foundation is in the fields of molecular pharmacology, cellular and molecular biology, protein chemistry, and epigenetics. If those words seem foreign to you, hopefully she will touch on those and provide a better definition along the way. She's currently studying epigenetic changes in aging, specifically in the epithelium, a type of cell in our bodies and in other animals at Coriell Institute, as I mentioned before. So thank you for joining us today, Shoghag, and I will turn the mic over to you and mute myself.
Great, thank you so much for having me. Let me share my screen. Okay, so here we go. So as David said, thank you, by the way, David and Melissa, for having me. And my understanding is that this is part of a career guidance program. And I personally was thinking about this for my own kids and her classmates too, to do this. She's still in middle school, but I thought it's something very important. So you girls should be very happy to have the privilege of hearing from people who have gone through the journey that you might possibly choose to walk through as well. So you can contact me or be in touch with me after, if you still want to, after this presentation through LinkedIn. And if you are not on LinkedIn yet, maybe this would be a reason to get onto LinkedIn, which is a very nice professional platform to connect with people. So my talk was entitled, "If you can dream it, you can do it." So I want to do this as engaging, as informal as possible. And Hannah and Tori, I guess, yes. Lucky you too. I will have to ask you some questions and feel free to interrupt me. So since the title of the talk is "If you can dream it, you can do it," I'm gonna ask you, I have prepared poll thinking it will be a lot more people, but that's okay. I want you to answer this first polling question. Can you see the question? So the question is, who is behind this famous quote, "If you can dream it, you can do it"? Okay, so I'm gonna share the results, which is you both said Walt Disney. In reality, it's actually an employee of Walt Disney named Tom Fitzgerald, but it's commonly referred to as Walt Disney. So I have dream and can in bold because those are the two things I'm really gonna focus on. As I tell you my story, I'm gonna tell you how you can dream and how you can do it. So we're gonna talk a little bit of everything today. We're gonna talk about dreams. What are dreams? Do dreams change over time? Do they stay the same? Should they change? Should they not change? How can we actually have a dream and dream? And we're gonna touch on the ability. Do you have the ability? Do you have the talent or the skill? Do you need them? Do you have the commitment? These are some of the things we're gonna talk about. It's gonna be a lot of back and forth questions and answers. And we're gonna talk about history. We're gonna talk about a lot of different things. thoughts. But first, let me introduce myself a little bit more. So my biography, I was born in the 1900s, believe it or not. So I was born in a country called Lebanon. This is the flag of Lebanon. It's a very small country in the Middle East. It's a beautiful country on the Mediterranean Sea. It's very small, but very big in its beauty and its hospitality. But as you can tell from my name, which is an Armenian name, my grandparents were born and raised in a country called Armenia. This is the flag of Armenia. And Armenia is located in the southeast of Europe in a mountainous region called the Caucasus. And so I identify as Lebanese of Armenian origin. And the reason my grandparents were born there and left the country is because in World War I, around 1915, there was a big genocide that happened where 1.5 million Armenians were killed. And my grandparents were lucky ones that were deported, and they walked from Armenia to Lebanon. And that's where my story began, in Lebanon. And then because of that, I speak 3 languages. I speak Armenian. I actually had no choice but learning Arabic as well, because in Lebanon, the main language is Arabic. And then I had to choose, starting from kindergarten, whether I want to follow the English track or the French track. But I chose the English track. And then in 2006, I came to the US, and the main reason I came here to actually Pittsburgh initially is for my education, to continue my education and do my PhD. So as a kid, when I was a year, maybe 6 years old, and until I was 10 or so, my dream was to become an astronaut. And actually, that lasted for quite some time, but also was followed by another dream, which was being a teacher. So now I want to ask you my second polling question. I don't know how to move for the second question. Oh, maybe, yeah, here. I figured it. So the question is, when you were in first grade, what did you dream of becoming in the future? And this doesn't have to be exactly first grade, but around that time.
Says the poll's closed right now. I don't know why. I don't know if there's a way we can.
I'm gonna relaunch it.
Okay.
Okay, one person answered. I don't know if it wasn't enough time, but we have a person who said she wanted to be a doctor. Okay, so that's awesome. Moving on. So what I do currently, I want to talk about that, and then I want to talk about how I got to do what I want to do. So I work, as David mentioned, at Coriell Institute for Medical Research. And at Coriell, what we do is we mostly do biobanking, which means that we store samples. That samples could be blood, skin samples, any kind of tissue from people all over the world. And then by storing those, we also contribute to distributing those samples to the world for researchers, for doctors, for people who are interested in doing research. By asking questions and using our samples to use them to get to answers. So I also am part of the research group at Coriel. So we also have our own research team and research endeavors. It's not only we collect and distribute samples, but we also do our research. So I have three major tasks that I do as research scientist, and they're divided into three parts. So I do wet lab, and I'm going to tell you what that means and what that involves. I do dry lab work, and I connect with people. So with wet lab, I mean I am interested in understanding cancer. How is cancer formed? How is cancer initiated? And more importantly, my main goal is how can I find ways to stop cancer from occurring, or if after it occurs, how can I stop from growing? So this involves a lot of posing questions, putting up hypotheses, doing experiments, preparing reports, etc. So besides the wet lab, which is done mostly at the bench, I also do dry lab, which goes hand in hand with the wet lab, which is I write grants because when you want to do a wet lab, you need a financial support. You need to cover the expenses of the things you're doing. So that's why you sit down and write grants where you're making an argument that why is it important what you're doing and how are you going to do it? And when you do it and you complete the experiments, what is the important discoveries that you will find and how is that going to be useful to the world, to the patients, etc. So I spend a lot of time writing grants and I do a lot of presentations like this one uh, for different audiences. I do it for researchers, for local teams, teams from the institute and other universities, conferences, etc. So, and nowadays, there are important changes happening in research, which has to do with after our whole genome, the human genome was um, uh, sequenced, which I will tell you about a little bit. We have lots of data that we need to work with. So we need a lot of computer and bioinformatic um, skills to do all this. And then part of my other effort and responsibility as a research scientist and somebody who likes to interact with people is that there are very rare diseases in the world. Rare meaning there are only, let's say, 200 patients in the whole world um, that maybe they do not have treatment for their diseases. So I am interested in finding these people or researchers who work with these people or patients or their parents, their families, or people who advocate them. So I want to find those people with rare diseases and try to talk to them the importance of why should they contribute with biomaterials, meaning giving us blood or giving us saliva sample or skin sample to deposit in Coriel so that we can later distribute to the world so people can do research and find cures for their diseases. So I am interested currently in breast cancer. I want to know how breast cancer starts. So when you look at breast cancer, 20% of all breast cancers happen because somebody in the family had breast cancer. So it's basically hereditary, passes down from parents to children. But the remaining 80% of breast cancers are cases that do not have genetic predisposition, meaning it doesn't come from the family. It's just, we call them sporadic. So why is that? That's my goal. I want to know how breast cancer starts in those cases. So my research goal is to understand those genes that will result in breast cancer. So before I tell you more about my research, I have fun facts that I would like to ask you, and please feel free to unmute yourself and answer these questions. So first one is, on average, how big is a human cell, you think? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but that's okay.
Anyone can answer, and don't be afraid, don't be shy. Hannah, that's a cop out. Very, very small. How about a size?
Oh, I
1
don't
inch.
see, they're answering in the chat. I can't see the chat. It's okay.
Yeah, they are answering in the chat, but I can read. Mrs. Eckstein said as big as a pin top. And then Hannah said very, very small. How about a size in measurement, Hannah, Tori, or Abby? Less than 1 millimeter.
Oh, that's pretty good. So the answer is 6 micrometers. Okay, next. Where are genes located?
I'll monitor the chat box for you.
So genes, where are genes located? I'm trying to see the chat box, but I can't do it.
I can chime in if you want. Come on, students, you got this.
Is it in your DNA?
Exactly, yes, you got it. So if you were to stretch DNA from one single cell, how long do you think that DNA would be?
Ooh, I know.
That DNA would be longer or taller than you. It will be 2 meters long. The next question. How many types of cells are in human body? This is like how many different types of cells you can think of. Anyone?
I'm gonna wait, see if they type it in. I typed my answer. What do you think, students? Take a guess. 1 million, said Hannah.
Okay, I want types of cells. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the answer, which is 200 types of cells. So meaning, yeah, 200 types. It's like skin cell, eye cell, heart cell, kidney cell, and in each organ we have different types of cells, but altogether they count for 200 different types of cells. And now this question is, how many total number of cells are in a human body? This is more than the lottery value.
Isn't it like 1 trillion or something?
Trillion is good, is right. It's actually, here it is. How many zeros? It's like 30 trillion cells in one human body. So we have the DNA. On the DNA, we have genes, and we have 200 different cells. These cells have the DNA in them, and total we have 30 trillion cells in our bodies. The reason I wanted to say this is the following. So this is a picture of a human cell, and at the center is the nucleus where our DNA is found. So one cell has the DNA, and all 200 different types of cells in our body have the same DNA. So the question is, these different types of cells, how come they're different if they have the same DNA and the same genes? So think about that. Maybe you haven't thought about this previously this way. We take it sometimes for granted. We have the same DNA in our cells that dictate who we are. We have 200 different types, and these 200 different types have the same DNA, but they have different functions and they are different cell types. So the answer is to something called epigenetics. So what's epigenetics? This is gonna relate to my research. That's why I wanna introduce it this way. Think about a book. So your DNA is this book. This book is your DNA. And in one cell, this book has different bookmarks in it, meaning these bookmarked pages are important for that cell. Now, if you take another cell, it has the same book, but it has different bookmarks in it, and that makes it a different cell. It has the same book, but it has different pages in it that are important for that cell. So this bookmarking, what's important in one cell than the other, is what is epigenetics all about. Do you have any questions on this? So adding or changing these bookmarks on the DNA in different cells is the field of epigenetics. So one way these bookmarks are added is a process called DNA methylation. So what's DNA methylation? So here you have your chromosome, and the chromosome is compacted with that 2-meter long DNA. And the DNA, when open, it can have a bookmark tag, which is called methylation. It's a chemical modification. So these methylations shown in yellow, orange hexagons on the DNA would be different in different cells and would say what gene is important in that cell from that DNA than from other genes in other cells. So my research, going back to my research, is I want to know how is genes in breast cancer is regulated. For example, you take a normal breast cell. So here in blue, it's the DNA. And I just labeled a gene here called tumor suppressor. So tumor suppressor genes are good genes. Think of them as good for you. Good, because they don't let, if they are active and expressed, if they are there, they will help you not have cancer. So in order for those tumor suppressor genes to be expressed and help you not have cancer, they have to have the metal tag, which is green. That means if you have the metal tag, which is green, like the traffic light, then this gene in that cell will be on, like a switch. And therefore, when genes are on, thanks to that DNA methylation tag, this gene will be ultimately translated into a protein which will do its function. In this case, the function will be to protect you from having breast cancer. But what happens and how it happens in cancer is the following. So this same gene, that's its role is to protect you from cancer, will have a different tag. This time, the tag will be red, and this will be like the traffic light. It will stop. It will be turned off, and then it will not form its protein. And therefore, by not having the protein, you will not be protected from having breast cancer. So that means you will be more at risk to develop breast cancer. So then the question is, what are these genes and how can we change from red to green? That's the question I'm asking in my research, and that's the goal of my research. So here we have a breast cancer suppressor gene that has the DNA methylation tag, which is red, and it's switched off. So now you are at risk of having breast cancer. But there are many different genes in our bodies, close to 25,000 genes. Now, which gene is responsible for doing this is like finding a needle in a haystack. So we're trying to find that genes that will cause breast cancer when they have the DNA methylation bookmark on them. So here is how I do on a daily basis what I do. So here you have a normal breast cell that has the green methylation, while in tumors it's red and the tumor suppressor is off. So I compare normal and tumor samples, and I get these samples from patients, and I get these samples from public data. There are public data available where people put their data in a system called the TCGA, which is the Tumor Cancer Gene Atlas. Anyways, so this is where you can get samples to do your own research. And then I use both, like I said before, computer generated data analysis, like I analyze data using the computer, and that's called the bioinformatics. Or I do wet lab stuff. I do comparisons using actually DNA extracted from these cells. And I'm sure you have heard about something like CRISPR, which is a tool that you can use to turn genes on or off. So this is just to give you an idea how we compare normal and tumor and get some answers about these genes. So I'm going to give you one quick example. One gene is called YOD1. So this YOD1 is off because it has the red tag. So what I do is I go to the cells and I artificially say, okay, I'm going to overexpress. I re-express this gene. And I see what the experiment would be. Okay, these cells are cancerous cells because they don't have this gene. And so they grow fast. So if I turn this gene back on, the cells should start growing at a slower pace. So here you see this graph in black line is the cells, the cancer cells that keep on growing over time. Here you have 24, 48, up to 168 hours. When I turn the switch on, basically I'm saying, okay, protect the cells from cancer. You see that this green line, it's when the light is on, they start growing slowly. So these are cancer cells that will grow slower when the light is on. I look at the other way around too. So I say, okay, in normal cells, this gene is on, so it should grow slowly. what would happen if I turn this gene off? So if I switch the lamp, would the cells grow faster or slower? So here, the control cells are normal cells shown in black that have a slow growth. But when I turn on and when I turn off the light, so I expect that the cells will be more cancer-like and will grow faster. That's shown here in blue. So see how over time the black line, which are cells that have the gene on, are slow growing, while the blue line where the gene is turned off now, like the protector is turned off, it will make the cells grow faster. So why is this important? I'm gonna explain to you in graphics here. So imagine a cell that has two genes, A and B. These two genes are on, so these two genes are important for the cell, for the normal cell to grow. Now in cancer, one of these genes will have the DNA methylation red mark and it will switch off the lamp. And the cell will still grow because it's cancer cell, it likes to grow. And because it depends on another gene, gene B, which is still on, and that's why it's gonna grow. So this is gonna be important because now if I can find a way where I can turn both genes off, switch both lamps off, then only then the cancer cells will be dead. And that's what we want. We want to kill the cancer cells. So changing topics a bit again, going to dream. We started by saying if you can dream it, you can do it, and dream was in bold. So what are dreams? So I went to the Webster's dictionary and I found this definition, which are basically all good when you're sleeping. A series of thoughts, images, or emotions occurring during sleep, but this is not what we're talking about. But there is some truth to all of this, especially the words I've marked in bold. So, and I put it together in a different way, and this is what I came up with. So dreams are desirable, beautiful, inspiring purpose that you want to achieve through your thoughts and actions. I'm going to read this again. Dream or dreams are desirable, beautiful, inspiring purposes that you want to achieve through your thoughts and actions. So do dreams change over time? So I'm going to tell you this. The answer is yes, because I'm going to tell you through my story. So for my undergraduate degree, so when I was back home still in Lebanon, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to become a math teacher. But things changed for me because though I applied and I got acceptance in the math major, I financially could not afford that university that I was accepted in. So I changed and I talked to myself. And so, what am I good at? What do I like to do? So I went to another private university and I majored in clinical laboratory sciences. That has to do with everything ology related. That means I studied about bacteriology, about parasites, about microbes, about fungus, about viruses, about the blood, everything that has to do with the human human and human blood and tissues and samples, and also bacteria and viruses that could infect people. And then I did some trainings in the hospital labs where I studied and I quantitated people's samples. Like if we had blood, I would withdraw blood and study that blood, etc. But later I thought this is not enough. I really want to do something more. And then I said, okay, I'm interested in how the body works. So I went and majored in human physiology. So I got my master's degree in human physiology, which is studying how each body organ functions and their significance and how they all relate to each other. So this was interesting to me because also at the same time that I was studying, I was doing research in the lab. And I was studying how different cells talk to each other in different organs. And then my dream of teaching was still in me. So I wanted to teach. And I knew that I needed a higher education to be able to teach if I wanted to teach in university. So that's when I made the decision to come to the United States. And that's when I majored in pharmacology, which is basically studying how drugs work. What do drugs target in our bodies? And I was studying, so you know, sometimes when you take medications and you don't anymore respond to them because you become resistant to them. I wanted to study how that happens. Why do you get resistance to certain medications? So after I completed my PhD, the normal route is the traditional, I should say, is to do a postdoctoral fellowship. Basically, you do furthermore training until you become independent scientist. And that's when I did the postdoctoral training in the field of epigenetics, as I was telling you, at Temple University. And now after that, I moved to Cornell Institute as a research scientist. Now, the question for you is, how can we dream? That's what you need to think about. All the scientific, I don't know how other people talk to you, but all these scientific details are important. But what's important is also to think about who you are, what are your dreams, how can you dream? So there are a few things that I thought about that are important in building your dreams and to achieve them. And these are mentioned in these boxes. Family, relatives, teachers. Think of people, as I'm saying, think of people in these categories. Family, relatives, teachers, friends, coaches, and you. And the most important thing you're gonna do to build your dreams or to find out your dreams is ask questions. The most important piece of advice that I can give you is ask questions. There are no wrong questions. So ask questions, please. Ask how these people, maybe you don't have relatives who went to college. Maybe your family or you're the first one in your family is gonna go to college, but I'm sure there's somebody in this circle that has walked before you and has some answers for you. Just ask questions. Ask how they got to do what they do now. That's what I'm trying to tell you, how I came from a small country in Lebanon, what were my dreams and how I got to achieve them, going through different stages and different journeys. Ask if they were to start again, what would they do differently? You'll be surprised by their answers. So you won't be surprised if you don't ask them. So please ask them. Then ask yourself, who are you? Really, do some soul searching. Who are you? What do you like? What you don't like? What irritates you? What inspires you? What makes you smile? What makes you feel good about yourself? Who are you? Yeah, and what's your personality like? Try to explore yourself. And this is like what you're doing right now is part of it. You're attending a session that was meant for you to help you as a guidance. But you can do this on a daily basis. You can ask people around you every day, and um, and ask. People will be happy to answer. If they don't have an answer, ask more questions. They do have an answer. So now when it comes to can, these can also be the whether you can achieve your dreams or not can also be related to all these boxes, but the most important one will be you. You can do it, but you have to think about few things. So like me, if you want to do something, can I or my family afford going to that school? If not, what is the other opportunity? It's not simply a yes or no. What else can I do to help achieve my goal? Do I have the skills, the talent to take on this track? So think about what have you done so far? What are you good at the school or outside the school or curricular activity or when you talk to people? What are the skills that will help you with the specific choices you make? And how am I prepared to take this challenge? And this has to do with your personality and strength. Um, so, um, so are you really committed to doing this thing that you're dreaming of? Do you really want this so badly? And if so, what do you think will help you achieve it in terms of your, what have you done in the past? Um, so I'm gonna give you just a simple example of a research scientist that I have become and how I figured out like my strengths. So first of all, for example, if you were to become a research scientist, are you interested in experimenting? Do you like to do experiments? Like, do you like to go in the kitchen and try to put two things together and see what happens? Do you like asking questions? Do you find yourself there's a problem, let's say on the basketball field? Do you like to find a solution to the problem? Do you in general, not just in science, do you usually find yourself trying to solve problems? And what are you like? Do you give up easily? So if an experiment fails, would you give up or would you try again? These are some important things that a scientist would have to answer if they want to be a successful research scientist. So this is something to think about in terms of in the field of the sciences. So am I detailed oriented or do I care about the bigger picture or both? Like as a scientist, I know that I have to pay attention to the smallest details. Why this experiment failed? Did I miss something? Did I forget something? Did I do something more than I should have done? Or also, what is the bigger picture? Why am I doing this? Is this really important? Is the patient gonna benefit from this? Um, and also, as a scientist, we would like, I mean, we're building a research based on previous research. So there is some teaching and sharing of knowledge, building on what others have done before. Are you also willing to do that if you want to be a scientist? Are you willing to share? Are you willing to add knowledge and find a cure um, in any disease, not just cancer? Um, and I think that's all I have in terms of slides, but I am happy to talk to you more if you have any questions. And I want to thank you for being here. And
No, thank you. This was great. I'm so interested in all this, and I have such little background about it. Being an English major and a psych master's, like I don't know anything about it, but it's certainly interesting.
Thank you. I liked it too.
is that Tori?
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Tori, I'm curious, were you the one who said you wanted to be a doctor?
Yes.
Do you still want to be a doctor?
I am actually going to college next year for nursing. So
Oh, that's awesome. I have a whole family of nurses.
so do I, and doctors.
That's good. So you like caring for people. Do you have any other questions? Is Hannah still there?
I'm still here.
Do you have questions, Hannah?
I don't have a question, but when you were talking about the characteristics of a scientist, how a scientist typically cannot give up, they have to persevere. I think that's cool, but I also think that I would have trouble with that. I typically don't give up per se, but I think that if I was in a scientific environment in that situation, I definitely would lose hope a little bit. But if it was more like in school or soccer or something I'm more interested in, which is more hands-on, I think that I would persevere. But doing research like that is a lot more numbers and science, like experiments, and a lot of brain power.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but you're not saying anything different. You're actually saying that you are the type who never gives up. It's just in what area. So it doesn't have to be in the sciences. It doesn't have to be in research. As long as you know your tools, like your strengths, maybe, but you don't give up easily, but you're not that interested in research. So that doesn't make you less of a perseverer, but it makes you, that it tells me that you're less passionate about research maybe. So it's not just one thing. Actually, that's a strength, not giving up. That can apply in any field, in life in general. Like when difficulties come, challenges come, you're not giving up. So yeah, that's not only one thing that will make you a successful scientist, but that's part of it. So the other thing is, do you like it? Are you passionate about it? Or you're committed to doing it? That's another question that goes with it.
Yeah, we definitely needed the resilient people during COVID. The people
Yeah.
that didn't give up.
That's so true. If you are interested in, I don't know if this is what kind of presentation you were looking for, but if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'm willing to talk anytime. It doesn't have to be a formal one-time presentation.
Thank you very much. We actually do a career day every year, and it's not like tables. We have 54 speakers come in, and we reschedule the entire school. I would love to invite you to that. If I could get your email, I can get it from David. I'll put you on our list. It's in December. It's like the first Friday in December every year. It's really a cool event.
Yeah, sure.
But, we always like to have people with different careers in here, and we've had doctors and nurses, but we don't have as many researchers, so that would be great.
Yeah, sure, definitely. It's part of my responsibility, like teaching others and sharing my my experiences, because like when I went to college, I had to ask people around, what are they interested, what they think. Should it be just passion? Should it be just strengths? skills. It's a combination of everything, but you don't know these things unless you hear or you ask questions.
Well, I appreciate that you feel like that's part of your responsibility because many people don't, so it's commendable.
Yeah,
But thank you very much. I know we didn't have a big group because of the week that we have,
That's okay.
but I appreciate it, and I'll definitely reach out to you again if that's okay. Your presentation was great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
so much. I really liked it.
You're welcome. Good luck, ladies.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. Okay, bye-bye.